Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and with me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all listeners to Monday, where a good cup of coffee is a necessity. But don't worry, we'll give you some tea as well.
Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for thought.
Well, let's jump right into the stories while I enjoy my morning cup of brew.
Oh, what brew are you going to enjoy?
Strawberry lemonade tea.
Delicious. Well, let us get into some of these delicious stories, shall we? For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below.
I am ready for your stories today, you brown-eyed she-demon.
Thank you. For our first story, am I the a-hole for not photographing a wedding I didn't know about? My sister announced she was throwing herself a surprise birthday party, and she talked about it for months. I had never been invited to her house before, and honestly, I was a little sour about it given how close we've always been. My mom asked if I'd take some pictures since I'm a photographer. My mom nagged me for a couple months because everyone was going to be there. I won't go into details, but the day before I wound up in the emergency room. The ER doctor ran a bunch of tests and an MRI and ended up admitting me and called in the neurosurgeon and booked an operating room for emergency surgery. It was now the morning of my sister's birthday, and I texted my mom to tell her I couldn't be there and explained why, and she was pissed. Later that evening, she texted me a picture of my sister in a wedding dress getting married to her boyfriend. I asked who all knew, and she said everyone except you. We wanted it to be a surprise. Am I the a-hole for getting upset that I was basically being tricked into a full-on wedding photography without knowing I was supposed to do it and everyone else knew it was a wedding and not her surprise birthday party?
So I have some questions that hopefully you can clarify for me. Was the mother pissed with the OP because she couldn't be there? Or was it because she wasn't there to take the pictures for them for free?
So from how the poster is putting it down, it was because she wasn't able to take the pictures for the wedding, not really because she missed the wedding.
Oh, okay.
And maybe that's the reason why she wasn't informed it was a wedding to begin with.
Do you think the family would have bamboozled her into that? I mean, I know that wedding photography is expensive. It's a lucrative business if you're in it.
Oh, yes. Possibly.
Yikes. So I guess we'll start with this. I don't believe that the OP is the a-hole just because of the facts we just said. It sounds like the family knows how expensive photography is, especially for weddings. They thought that they could just get a free ride from the OP, a family member, which is terrible. The OP says that they're the only ones that didn't know that this was a wedding.
Correct. They're the only ones to know.
I mean, that's weird, right?
That apparently it was supposed to be a surprise wedding just for them.
For just the OP that's it? That's a weird situation.
Well, Reddit also says that he is not the a-hole. In fact, one commenter said that they needed this surprise wedding so that they could strong-arm the OP into doing photography for free.
That's terrible.
So clearly, everybody seems to be in line with what apparently has happened here.
Well, I hope that the OP recovers from the surgeries or is doing better in the future.
The nice part is a lot of Redditors are very, supportive in their comments to the OP. He did explain that there was some complications with the surgery, but seems to be doing much better.
Okay.
So on to our next story. Am I the a-hole for making a family memory book with just my full siblings and not including my stepsister or half siblings? My mom and dad had me, 17 male, my sister, 14 female, and brother, 13 male together. Mom died 8 years ago. Dad remarried 6 years ago, and it was not easy for the three of us. Dad's wife, Rose, has a daughter who's like 11 now. They also have a 4 and 2-year-old together. About a week after their wedding, my siblings snuck into my room in the middle of the night, sad about dad being married and the changes that had happened. They asked if it felt like mom was really gone now, and I said yeah. I asked them if they'd like for us to have something just for us, no new family involved, where we could remember mom and talk about that stuff. They said yes. So I raised the money to buy a pretty nice scrapbook, and about once a month my siblings would sneak into my room at night and we'd put photos in and write memories we had, and I'd share the stories I remembered of mom, since as the oldest I remember her best and remember the stories about her I'd heard. We never added Rose, our stepsister, or our half-siblings when they were born. We also didn't talk about it to Dad or anyone else. I knew he wouldn't love that we were doing it. I kept it hidden in my room. 3 weeks ago, Rose went through my stuff and found it. She claimed she was cleaning up in my room, but I know she was snooping because I had it hidden in a place that she wouldn't be cleaning. She went through it, showed my dad, and they sat my siblings and I down and told us that was a really unfair thing to have in the house and how mean it was to do something like that without all the siblings involved. My brother said it was just for the 3 of us as real siblings. Dad told him that it was a shitty attitude, and what are our stepsister and half siblings if not real siblings? My sister said it would always be different. Rose said we should never have made something in the house we all shared when it excluded 3 of our siblings and would hurt feelings. She said we should have done something to bring us all together. My sister said that wasn't what she wanted. My dad sent them out of the room, and he and Rose told me I never should have gone along with it and how much it hurt my stepsister when she saw the book and heard what we'd been doing. Rose said it hurt her too, that she tried to make us all one family, and we made sure never to close that divide in the last 6 years. Dad told me he expected better from me. Am I the a-hole?
All right. So the kids are young. The OP, he says his mother passed away 8 years ago. And then the OP's father remarries 2 years later.
Correct.
So they have a very blended family because they end up having, with his new wife, 3 more kids. So there's 6 total in this house. And it kind of sounds like the OP's parents, his stepmom, they've been trying to make sure that everyone's, together. It's one family. It's the way it should be. But I also understand that for these kids, their mom is their mom, regardless of if she's unfortunately passed away or not. Those are memories that they still have. And that was just their way of making sure that they didn't forget her. I don't think it was a way of shunning their other siblings. Now, some of them do kind of say some things that are a little more not guarded, because these are kids.
Correct.
They're just kids and they're trying to cope. And
their
if this is the way,
their verbiage might be, as an adult, might be construed as sort of ousting the other half of the family, but they're kids. Their viewpoints are going to be very innocent.
Sure.
When they're saying that it's just for us real siblings, they're essentially just saying it's just for us siblings that are related to our mother. Yeah,
I just think they are kids. I think this was just their way of coping, and it's a sweet gesture. The OP says it. He was the oldest of the 3 of them when she passed, so he would have the most memories with her. They wanted to know their mother better. They got together and they put a little scrapbook together and talked about memories. I think that's sweet. The exclusion of the other kids in this thing, I'm sorry that they feel that way. Obviously, I guess anyone would if they found out that their older siblings were doing something, because the younger kids don't understand any of this.
No, they're very young.
They don't have that loss. They have their mother still.
They're 11, 4, and 2.
So they're not really, they're not in it the way the other 3 are.
Correct.
So I don't believe the OP is the a-hole for it, because I don't think it came from a malicious place. I will say this, one thing that bugged me about the entire story was that Rose, the stepmother, dug through. Apparently she had to dig very hard, because this wasn't
at the top.
Yeah, it wasn't sitting at the top
stuck under the bed,
dirty clothes.
At the edge.
I'm sure, because kids get pretty clever, especially when you're 17. They get pretty clever where they hide things.
Well, they also say that the poster is not the a-hole. In fact, our poster has a small update, and they said they were going to destroy the book because Rose found this post, but I was able to save it. I can't speak for my siblings, but I am done with Dad after this. I only have a few months left, and I won't be sticking around. Won't be trying any kind of therapy with them. I'm just done. I'll be grounded or something for a while, but I don't care anymore. At least it will just be me. My sister called our grandparents after everything went off, and now they know. They want to try and help, but I don't see that working. Thanks for all the comments. So there is one commenter that I'd like to read their response to this, and they said, the only reason your father's wife has hurt feelings is that she snooped through your private belongings. The only reason her daughter is hurt is because she showed her your private belongings. This hurt was created by your father's wife, who is older and should know better. There is nothing wrong with trying to keep your mother's memory alive in a scrapbook. Your father and his wife chose to blend their families. You did not, and you have every right to hold on to memories of your life before your mother died, not the a-hole. So we dealt with some siblings that was dealing with the family blending. Let's see about how a father deals with his stepdaughter. For our next story, am I the a-hole for not buying a car for my stepdaughter? English is not my first language. I'm child-free. I like kids. I just don't want to bring one into this world. I have a sister and a brother. My sister is also child-free, but my brother has a 16-year-old daughter. We love our niece, and we like to spoil her. For her 16th birthday, we decided to buy a car for her, which made her very happy. I married my wife a year ago after dating for 13 years. She has a daughter and a son from her previous relationship. I like her kids, and I think we generally get along. Her daughter turned 16 a week ago. I bought her a nice bag that she had said she wanted. I thought it's a good and thoughtful gift, but my wife looked shocked. She didn't say anything in front of the guests, but after the party was over, she blew up at me and called me an a-hole. She said they expected a car since I bought a car for my niece. We got into a fight, and she is not talking to me now. Edited for a typo. We dated for 13 years, not 3. Am I the a-hole?
This is spicy meatball.
It is a very spicy meatball.
Okay, so they've been together and dating for 13 years. My guy, good for you. There's not many people that will let that go on for 13 years, but kind of sounds like you put yourself in a little bit of a pickle. So they've been dating for 13 years. So I don't think you can give me any clarification on this, but I doubt that. Did he say that they were living together for 13 years? Has he been a big part of those kids? He said he likes them, the daughter and the son of his now wife.
Correct.
But that doesn't necessarily mean he was a big part of their growing up or anything like that. But 13 years is a long time, especially if she's 16. That means that he met OP's daughter when she was 3. So
3
he
years
was
old.
there throughout all of her growing up, all the big moments. I'm sure he was there for all of that. So he's Dee Dee. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
ooh. See, that's where. So were they living together? Was it that situation?
Well, I can provide you some updates from his comments.
Little she devil.
A little
That's why
bit
I
of
asked these
information, not really updates, just some information to help gauge what you'd feel.
Okay.
So first things first, he says he does like her kids.
Okay.
He doesn't have any problems with kids. He just doesn't want to bring one into the world.
I understand.
The other part is he didn't full out buy out his niece the car. It's not like he spent $20,000 on a brand new car for his niece. It was his brother who is the father of the niece. His sister and him split the cost for a new car rather than the brother just getting her a used car.
Okay.
So they split the cost to just give her like a really like here.
It's very nice of them.
Here's your happy 16th birthday. Here you go. It's a group present. You're only getting the one, you know? He thought that he was being thoughtful by getting her his stepdaughter a bag that she said that she had wanted and didn't realize that there would be comparison.
Oh, see, that's the problem.
But at the same time, he says he still wouldn't just buy out a straight out brand new car, not even for his current wife. It's just that's not like his spending style.
Okay, so he's made it very clear that the only reason why this car happened for his niece was because there was 3 people helping them with this.
Correct.
He wasn't gonna buy one for his stepdaughter in this situation because it was only gonna be him.
Correct.
I can understand that situation, but if that was the argument, then why couldn't then his brother and the sister do exactly what they did for his brother's daughter for his? Outside of it being a stepdaughter, that's the difference I think in the story.
So then here's another thing. Even though she's been in his life since she was 3, he says she still has her dad in her life, and his stepdaughter's never seen him as a dad figure.
Okay, he's painting the picture then. They're not that close.
Correct.
Okay.
He said apparently her biological dad is a deadbeat, and while that might be the case, she still doesn't really consider the poster as a dad.
Got you. See, that's what I mean is like it's if the bar's set low and you're still not passing the bar. I guess I can. I mean, he wasn't being thought less. He still got her a nice bag and stuff like that. But I can imagine from the birthday party where you've got like your cousin who has this very nice car, who's the same age apparently, like 16-year-old. You know how that is at that age when someone else, especially if it's a family member that gets something, you're going, boy, if that's what they got, I can't wait to see what I get. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
At 16, sitting there going, man, I can't wait for this car. It's gonna be a nice new car. I wonder what stepdaddy got me. And then you open the purse and you're like, I can imagine her digging through the purse going, so I guess at the bottom of this purse, I get the keys, right? And then she pop open the purse and then there's nothing.
Just a purse. A very nice purse, possibly.
The expectations for this birthday party were very high.
Oh, yes.
I guess I'm going to have to say that the OP is not the a-hole. It just sounds like everything kind of was, the timing was bad. I don't know if you can expect that a 16-year-old wouldn't want a car the same way her cousin got a car in that situation. But if she's not that close to the OP, then she wouldn't be that close to the OP's family anyway.
Correct. So all of Reddit also says that he's not the a-hole. And you're right. Like if the bar was set pretty low when it comes to how he's being treated, which isn't even as like a full dad, you know. Additionally, they say that it's really weird that the mother wouldn't talk to him about this because clearly the poster had talked about getting the car together with his siblings and planned this. It wasn't like, I'm just going to go ahead and surprise everybody.
It's a financial like upheaval to take on a car. So yeah, they are right though. How would you expect that your husband just bought a car out of nowhere with both your guys' finances without saying anything to you?
He says that his wife makes 1/10 of what he does.
Okay.
And while that might be the case, if it's something that's an expectation, especially for your child, and you know how that relationship is between the step parent and the child, it would be something that you could talk to and say, hey, look, I can put X amount into this and you can put X amount into that. Yeah. And then together we can get her, even if it's just a used anything. But in the end, if she didn't communicate to him about this, then how is it that he can live up to any expectation?
Maybe OP's wife was like looking at this as a situation where he could definitely buy his stepdaughter's love, and this would be the moment she calls him Didi.
That could be it. Well, I kind of feel like we should stay on this family role. So let's go to our next story. Am I the a-hole for taking my daughter's side? I have a daughter, 14 female, with my ex. My ex in total has 4 kids, 1 with me and 3 with her current husband, 9 male, 7 female, 4 female. She has to downgrade her home because of some financial issues, and now they live in a 3-bedroom home. Yesterday, my ex called me angrily and asked me to talk some sense into my daughter. Apparently, my daughter and ex had a huge fight when my daughter found out she is supposed to share a bedroom with her half-brother. My daughter told her mom that she wants a room for herself or she will stop going to her home. I told my ex, while I understand that she has financial issues, but she needs to understand that my daughter shouldn't have to share a bedroom with her brother if she doesn't want to. I said that I think my daughter is right and asked if I should pick her up since it seems like she's not willing to give her a bedroom for herself. She called me an a-hole and ended the call. Am I the a-hole?
So for clarification, how old is the daughter in this?
14 years old.
14. And how old is the stepbrother?
9 years old.
Okay. Obviously, she's a teenager, and obviously every teenager doesn't want to share a room with a sibling. That's just how it works. Everyone, as you start getting older, you want your own space. Him taking his daughter's side. So it's a 3-bedroom home. There's 4 kids, so they're doubling up.
Correct.
Okay. And it's due to the financial situation. I don't see why the OP would be the a-hole in the situation by saying, look, because it sounds like he probably has his own house and a place for the daughter anyway. He only has 1 kid at this point.
Yes.
So I'm sure there's a way that she can live comfortably with her dad. Is this a way for the dad to kind of sneak his daughter away from the mom completely? I think so.
So here's the rub. He already has custody.
So he's just being a good guy.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with what I thought. He's definitely not the a-hole. I'm sorry that the situation is what it is as far as the financial constraint and how they had to downgrade the home and they got to pair up. Sounds like he's in a different situation. So if he can provide the room that the teen needs, and if he already has custody, then I don't see why it's a bad thing to have said what he did.
So all of Reddit also says he's not not the a-hole. In fact, some people offered some advice, some things like, well, maybe she could go visit her mom during the days and then come back to spend the nights at her dad's if they're close enough. She could sleep on the couch because if it's just a visitation, it's just something that'll be quick. Or have her even just go in and bunk with the girls. A lot of Redditors found it weird that she would be forced to bunk with her male sibling.
That's what I was going to say.
Rather than just stay temporarily with the, her female siblings, because they can find like a bunk bed and then an extra twin for her to stay in. Well, I still feel like we're on a roll with this. So let's go on with our next family story, shall we? For our next story, am I the a-hole for telling my brother he signed up to be a stepdad and needs to accept never graduating beyond that? My brother has been married for 11 years. And he has 4 stepkids. His wife had lost her husband a couple years before she met my brother, but from what she had said, she stayed with him for the kids and was not happy with him. The kids, all 10 and under when he died, loved their dad. They did not want a new dad, as my brother and my sister-in-law both stated the kids were very clear about that when they wanted their blessing to marry, and again before the wedding when the kids refused to participate in a family blessing. The youngest is graduating from high school in May, and her school sent out the request for a digital pamphlet they prepared for the graduating class. My sister-in-law put her and my brother down as mom and dad. The youngest put in for a wording change at school and dropped all titles for my brother. So it was Mom Jane and Mark. Not the real names, but you get the idea. My brother asked her if she didn't think of him as her dad after all this time, and she replied that she told him from the very beginning she never wanted another dad. All the others feel the same and outright dislike my brother and sister-in-law for how they tried to push them into forming that family relationship with them. My brother came venting to me and told me how shocking it was and how he never anticipated he would have raised the kids this long and not be considered a dad to them. He told me it wasn't supposed to be this way, that everyone says the kids warm up eventually and learn to embrace having more parents. I told him I had suggested way back when he was dating his wife that he should consider whether he would be okay with them not changing how they view him. He told me he didn't sign up for this, that kids are supposed to come around when they're loved and cared for, and he did everything in his power to give them an amazing life. Then he said his best friend got called dad within 2 years and the kids never even slipped and called him dad, and they were younger than his best friend's stepkids. I pointed out every dynamic and person is different, and some hold different feelings/views. He told me he signed up to be a dad, which is when I told him he signed up to be a stepdad and he needed to accept never graduating to dad because that was his reality. He told me I was insensitive, and it's not true because he signed up to be a parent, that the kid's dad is dead and he was the only father they had for the last 11 years. I didn't argue back, but he told me I owed him an apology and that I should really be more compassionate. Am I the a-hole?
This one is juicy. So, I guess we'll go ahead and get this out of the way. You, OP, are not the a-hole. Let's get into it. You went into this relationship, and he says it. He already outlines everything against himself. He went into that relationship knowing that his girlfriend had 4 kids, had a husband that had passed away that she really didn't care too much for because it sounded like she was just with him because of the kids. So that one's not a big deal on its own, but it's where even before they get married, the OP's brother says the kids didn't give him the blessing. All right? That's not a relationship you can force on anyone. Those kids love their father a lot. They're allowed to. That's their dad. Sure, you can have the hopes that someone might come around to those things for you, but you should never have walked into that situation saying, they're going to call me dad. Another thing that the OP's brother does that's probably not great is he was comparing his situation to other people's situation where he's like, well, my friend 2 years with his stepson or child called him dad. Like, you're setting yourself up, man. These kids let you know, and it sounds like the youngest one, even at that time, was saying, I'm not signing up for you to be my dad. Like, they gave you the expectation. Sure, you could have taken that as a personal challenge, because that's what it sounded like. Was he's like, you know what? I'm going to strong arm you, and you're going to love me.
That's kind of what I got too.
So that's the worst way to approach a child. I feel for the guy that he had this grandeur idea that the kids that he was helping raise were going to take him on as pops. That didn't happen. He got really hurt about it, but he didn't walk into that situation not knowing. His sister 11 years ago said, they may not ever look at you that way. And he still went into it knowing that. So yeah, he needs to look at it with a different mindset, that it's not about what those kids think of you, because it sounds like you were a large part of their life, but by you dwindling it down to being petty about whether or not you took over for their, because he comes out with a really nasty attitude. He's like, their dad has been dead for 11 years. And I'm like, what?
If that's how you talk to those children, I can understand why.
Yeah. Again, I understand the logic, what he's feeling and how he's looking at things. It just sucks the way he's going about it. I don't think you should have ever thought that you were going to fill the shoes for these kids in that respect. They let you know from the beginning that it wasn't going to be that way.
Well, Olive Reddit also says she's not the a-hole. In fact, let me just read a small insert in the comment section. This person is actually awarded, just to let all the listeners know. So if you'd like to read it all, please feel free, but I'll just read just a snippet. And she goes, not the a-hole. Parenting is not a reward system. You can't put in enough coins and effort that eventually, one day, the title of mom and dad falls out. It is something selfless you do, knowing there is no certainty that your relationship will become what you wish.
Yep.
Well, let's go on to another different type of parenting style.
Oh, Lord.
For our last story, am I the a-hole for calling him a f***ing embarrassment?
Uh-oh.
I've been seeing my fiance for 4 years now, and I came into the relationship with 2 boys. My boys are now 12 and 9. Once a year, me and the boys go to my family's vacation home with the entire family, and up until this year, my fiance did not attend. But now that we are engaged and merging families, the family asked that he come too. They all get along great with him anyways. I explained to him prior to us coming to our family retreat that during our week stay with the family, my kids do not have a bedtime. We do a lot of night activities, such as night swimming in the pool, karaoke, fires, nightly strolls through the neighborhood, etc., etc. So during this week, my kids absolutely do not have a bedtime, and this is how it has always been. I made it clear that bedtime was not to be enforced like it was at home, because this is a vacation and time with family, and I'm not making my kids miss out on nightly activities. I also explained that due to this, some nights they are up until easily 11 to midnight. It's a once a year, it's no big deal. So he was fully aware, and please note that this is the only time I've seen this side of him that I will mention below. We get here the first night, and you can tell he is already uncomfortable with the boys staying up past their bedtime. He was stressing out because the boys were still in the pool at 10 p.m. and he felt they should be in bed already. I reminded him at least twice that we were not enforcing a bedtime here, and he let it go the first night. The second night, 9 p.m. rolls around, and the boys were still up, and my fiance was dropping comments like, "You're lucky you're even still awake right now, you should be in bed," saying it right in front of my mom, who looked mortified that he had such an attitude. I told him to cut the shit in private. He tells me he thinks it's fucked up and that it's going to be terrible trying to get them back on their schedule. Never been an issue in the years prior. I stood firm and told him to knock it off and let it go. But then last night, my fiance starts angry sighing every single time he looks at the kids still awake. And I finally pulled him aside and told him he was a fucking embarrassment because he keeps saying these comments in front of my family, which leads to awkward silences and judgmental glances my way. I warned him prior to coming here, and if he had an issue that he can't control for a week, then he needs to leave because he's ruining our trip with his passive-aggressive BS surrounding a bedtime. He told me I'm an a-hole for making him feel like garbage over wanting to keep the kids on a schedule because it's best for them. This is in quotes. Am I the a-hole?
I don't know if there's any real clarification needed on this. Well, I mean, maybe. So the OP and her fiance, they've been together for 4 years. The 2 kids are from her prior marriage with her ex. So this is stepdad.
Correct.
Well, step fiance, almost dad.
Soon to be stepdad,
Okay.
possibly.
And they've been together for 4 years. So he's a part of the kid's life and all of this stuff. But he's never been on any of these family week-long retreats.
Yes.
She's already made very clear that this is like a nice, it sounds amazing, by the way. They're doing night swimming, they're walking around.
Karaoke.
It sounds like a nice little family getaway. And it's supposed to be taken as that, right? The kids are allowed to do whatever they want. She says it multiple times before this happens that there is not to be a bedtime enforced. So at that point, that's like the ground. That's the expectation. He had other ideas. As these stories tend to go. He walks in, and from night 1, he's already starting in on it with the control. That's scary. because that's really early. I would have expected like night 3, fine, he breaks, like. But he starts from night 1 being upset, and then it progressively gets worse from there. I don't think the OP is the a-hole for having told him to have chill. She was very respectful because she probably did it. Well, it sounds like she did it behind closed doors, not in front of the family that he was embarrassing and making
rude comments
and the sighing and making it awkward.
And the attitude.
Yeah, that's the worst thing you can do in a family situation, or like any, is when you take a room and you suck the energy out because you're being a fool. So he's kind of showing you what it's going to be like once the ring gets put on, right? I'd be very afraid and maybe use that as kind of the barometer for what you could be speeding into. If that's how he's acting over a bedtime, I'd be very afraid of what other things could be his trigger. If that's the first time you're seeing this, he's been playing the long game with you, so you might want to be a little more aware of how he acts going forward if that's what you're going to do. But you're not the a-hole.
Well, all of Reddit also says she's not the a-hole. There's a commenter that I'd like to read, and they go, by working through it together, I'm assuming you mean he makes his opinions on raising your children known, and you adjust to make him feel heard. And now he's showing you that if you had ever pushed back and told him, no, we're not doing it that way, he wouldn't have accepted that. He has been in control this whole time. He's just been doing it through puppeteering. Please get your children away from him before their teen years. Who knows what he will be doing, trying to maintain control over them. Not the a-hole.
Was there an update?
There's kind of some insight that I'd like to share from the poster.
Okay. That smile crept across your face when I asked the question.
So a lot of our commenters were questioning if she's seen any kind of behavior like this before. She went ahead and responded to some people. And she said, so basically in the beginning of the relationship, I made boundaries clear on the aspect of discipline, reprimanding, etc. My kids have a full-time father figure in their life. Their bio dad takes them week on and a week off. I told him that if he had any problems and or concerns, that he was to come to me directly and we would find a way to work through it together for the most comfortability, because I was 100% not comfortable with him setting ground rules on situations that I hadn't been informed about. He was completely okay with this. He very bluntly said from day one that he was not trying to be the boy's father, and generally speaking, he was very good with communicating to me he has a problem with something. However, I've noticed a lot of conflicting opinions on his parenting versus mine in the past, such as he pushes modesty to the highest degree possible, and had issues with me walking around in a sports bra, which I did shoot down. My boys aren't looking at me like that, and it's weird that he would think such things. Or the fact that he feels the boys should have to ask permission to eat the snacks that I purchase for them. I don't agree with that either, and there really was no compromise made there because he absolutely hates the boys have an open door policy on the fridge. He also hates that I allow them to have drinks right before bed because then they are up using the bathroom. So now that I mention it, there have been a lot of issues that I have kind of overlooked in the past and turned a blind eye to, but usually he does pull me aside and bring up the issues in private, whereas while we had been here, he is just pushing his passive aggressiveness off in public.
All right, well, was there any more updates? Did she let us know? I'm not saying leave this guy, but maybe straighten up some of that stuff, because when you guys tie the knot, it kind of sounds like you're about to be put into a full-on yes sir, no sir situation, and your kids are going to take the brunt of that. It sounds like he's tightened the noose on a lot of things. Now I understand making sure that kids eat the proper amount or don't overeat, right? Because kids, how does someone know what they don't know? But it kind of sounds like he's done it to the extreme. If she bought the snacks for them and they know what is supposed to be acceptable for allocation of the snacks, you don't need a helicopter over them like that. But it kind of sounds like he's willing to do all of that.
So there's no updates aside from just that. But based on how she answered it, maybe it'll open up her eyes that there's just something quite not right in this relationship.
It does sound funny the way she's saying, now that you mention it. Thank you, Reddit.
Reddit, the good guy.
Good guy, Reddit. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We will be regularly posting on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
By the way, we just want to thank everyone for all the support you've been showing our channel. We appreciate all the comments, the likes, and the subscribing, and we look forward to making more content for you guys in the future. And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.